Well. I don't know what this is all about, but just maybe it's this being open. The more light, just I can just see everything really clearly. I don't know. Je ne sais pas. Terrible French accent. But that's something about me. So I wanted to do a video that just kind of gives folks the ability to know a little bit about who I am and maybe why I'm just a guy. Not. I sometimes will say things like I maybe give some background as to why. So I have mentioned that I have been a Christian for 20 years. That's the most important thing. My name is Devin. That's not very important. My last name is extremely unique, in my opinion. 4 letters. It's a 4-letter word. It's a verb. Back in the day, there was I know back in the day, such a funny phrase. But what was it? It was MySpace, I believe. It wasn't Zanga. There was a thing. Morning. There was this thing in the early 2000s, social media kind of thing. Oh my gosh. Facebook. Before Facebook went to garbage, there was this thing called groups. It was actually kind of cool, and it was a way. So I was talking to my wife about the difference between the different social media platforms. So Facebook was originally intended on joining people based on social media platform, but it joins people together based on ideas, and that's interesting. Facebook had elements of that. It tried to combine the two, and it had these groups, and I started 2 little groups. One was my last name is a verb, and the other was my last name is a 4-letter word. I had like a couple hundred people that joined those groups, and it was fun and it was cool, and in my whatever, maybe it wasn't cool, but that is just I don't touch Fresh Bear. I don't touch Facebook, but maybe once. I haven't. It's been a while. Maybe once a year. It's whatever. So about me, I am married. I am, for now. I'll be trunk cat. I can't do the proper French quatre. Trunk quatre. I just can't do it. I've never been able to pronounce that number properly. But that's what I'll be turning this year. It's all good. I was born in 1885. Just for the fun of it. So, move on. I love language, but I'm not fluent in any language except for English. I've studied French 6 years, middle and high school. Big deal. It was a long time ago. But I have a pretty good memory. I recognize words. I know a pretty good amount of vocabulary. I can recognize by hearing and by reading a lot of Spanish, a lot of Latin, stuff like that. As a result, I took a year of Spanish almost a year. Actually had to drop out of Spanish because I was taking Greek and Hebrew at the same time. And trying to take Greek, Hebrew, and Spanish at the same time, yeah, I couldn't make it. It just wasn't working for me. I kind of enjoyed taking Spanish. It was just, maybe I was too old, and I was already so interested in making sure to excel in the other languages. So I went to college, I went to grad school, got a degree in youth ministry. I've got a degree in clinical psychology. I'm not a youth minister and I'm not a psychologist, but I care about both just in a non-professional kind of way. I care about helping children. I care about helping others. I know that there are more powerful tools in our arsenal to help fix problems, to help people through difficult times than psychology. However, I also believe that this phrase you'll hear me say from time to time, all truth is God's truth. I also believe that there are things of value outside of the scope of the Bible, and we shouldn't rely on them as absolute truth, per se. But as the old saying goes, even the broken clock's right twice a day. That also means that we're going to be able to find potentially valuable things just about anywhere, because this is God's world that He created. So, what else? Well, I was born in Le Georgie, Georgia. Not the country. Maybe you could recognize that instantly by my accent, that I wasn't born in Georgia, the country. That means I'm eligible to become president, although that will never happen. Just not, because I'm not a pro-sodomy kind of guy. I'm just kidding. I think that's a really hilarious phrase. I just figured I'd say that. Oh boy, yeah. I went to a college that didn't have a football team. I went to a college that probably didn't even really have that much interest in football, period. I mean, we would maybe get together for the Super Bowl, but we had flag football, actually. Now that I remember back, there was flag football going on, and they had a basketball team. My college had 800 or 900. It's Toccoa Falls College. I can't say anything about it these days. I graduated 16 years ago, so I don't know how much the school's changed, but I have a lot of respect for what it was when I was there. I know that there were some significant changes that took place after I left, and anyway, I didn't graduate 16 years ago. Sorry. I graduated college 12 years ago. 12 years ago. That's right. Graduated high school 16 years ago. And I graduated grad school 8 years ago. Yeah. 16, 12, 8. Look at that. So that gives you a little context. Yeah, I know, it's hard to keep up. But I've learned. So I started in Georgia, that's where, but I've lived in Kentucky, briefly. After I left college, I wound up moving to South Carolina for grad school. Columbia International University. Then I lived in North Carolina, and I moved all over North Carolina. Lived in like 5 different places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5 different places in North Carolina. Then I moved to D.C., as in the District of Columbia. Bro, just it's like you're in an Altima. I get it. You don't want to bust your Nissan. Don't want to bust your Nissan. Something about that sounds funny. I don't know. So I lived in D.C. for a year, and that was the most recent place I lived. Now I'm in Florida. I didn't know for a long time that was not 2 separate words. I didn't realize that was like a acknowledgement of Florida. It doesn't matter. I don't know any of that person's music, so they don't deserve a shout out from me. So now I'm in Florida. It's not that I want to be here, because I don't. I'm not here because of work. I came here without a job. It's a long story, but it's also about me, and it tells you a little bit about me, about who I am, what I care about. So, well, why did I move so much? What was I doing? I got married in South Carolina 9 years ago, plus 1 day. I didn't get wed until June, but I celebrated my marriage anniversary. So my wife and I have a marriage anniversary and a wedding anniversary. So two different dates each year. And yesterday we celebrated our... Yesterday we celebrated our marriage anniversary of 9 years. And doesn't sound like a special amount of time, but it's good stuff. I'll post a link of what my wife put together yesterday. Just tearjerker. It's pretty amazing. She's a writer, and she can write. So, what do I care about? Why did I move around so much? Well, first and foremost, I want to be obedient to God. Part of the reason I moved was adjusting to different circumstances and trying to do what was best for my family at the time. So I moved. Most of the moves that I made and job transitions I made had to do with safety, and had to do with trying to go back to what's most important, what we value the most, those sorts of things. So I am young, but I've had a lot of jobs, and it's not because I'm quitting, it's for my family. And that sounds vague. I don't mean for it to be. So at one point I was working for an insurance company as a life insurance sales, and I was doing like 70 hours a week, 300, 400, 500 miles sometimes, just all over the place. Western North Carolina, I know that place like the back of my hand these days. And it just wasn't good. I had one child and another was on the way, and then another came, and we were just like, this isn't gonna work. It's not working, and it's not going to work. So I started thinking, what is a job that I'm designed for, that I just know would work for our family would be excellent. And I really wanted to find a resident director position, aka the resident dean, so to speak. It's the dude in certain college contexts that would be like the papa bear of a dormitory, like a men's dormitory. I went to that kind of school that had boys and girls were separated because it was a Christian campus, and they weren't pro-sodomy, even though an all-boys dormitory doesn't necessarily mandate non-sodomy, but it wasn't like that at all. Anyway, Papa Bear, the RD, he actually went by the name Mr. B. He's a pretty cool guy for the most part, but more so I cared about what he did and how he had a voice in people's lives there in the midst of crisis, there in the midst of different terrible situations, conflicts, depression, you name it. And he was a person that was able to speak into people's lives. And I was like, man, I need to find something like this. And that position wasn't available at the time. Who knows if it'll ever even exist in the way that it used to. So we started looking into things. We learned about this whole branch of category of occupation called group home / group homes. Not foster care. Instead of foster care operates where kids come to your house, right? You have a job and you have to make enough money to support the foster children, and you get a stipend, but you first have to make enough money with a separate job, so on and so on. You get training. This is the opposite. You abandon your home, you go live in somebody else's home, as in an institution or organization's home, and you take care of random people, kids. And it's like, it's so weird. It's so weird. We did that. Took a leap. Me, my wife, and 2 children went to go live in a home, become homeless technically, because we didn't have anywhere to go to if stuff hit the fan. So it was all in kind of situation, along with our 2 children, one of which was very, very young at the time. We did that. It was a substance and alcohol abuse home, 12 to 17-year-old kids, maximum of 6. And at one point we had 6, and it was really, really a good thing. We really enjoyed it. It's good. At some point, it changed from a substance alcohol abuse home to a DSS, random kids in the system kind of situation. Very much changed the dynamics of the home and created an extremely unsafe environment. We had to hit the road. All this this history and backstory will actually be easily read by what my wife put together yesterday, that I'll be putting the link, and I'll pin it as a comment if you come back to the video. You get to see a summary of everything and pictures. You get to see pictures of the fam. But anyway, bottom line is, I've always wanted to do the things that are going to make a difference. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to seek a career for the sake of bettering myself or my wife. We feel like we're not doing anything if we're not being effective, if we're not involving ourselves with other people and showing the love of Christ to people and helping people through their troubles in the ways that we're gifted to do so. What's the point? There's not a point. accumulating a kingdom for myself, amassing wealth, establishing a career, those are not in my priority list. I do care about stability and safety. I don't want to be homeless unless that was what was necessary. But it's about my value system, and I place a higher value on being obedient to God and not making a kingdom for myself, but being concerned about His kingdom. And that may sound really churchy or whatever, but I do my best to make that my priority. So why am I in Florida? DC was another adventure of trying to go to a group home kind of setting, but it was a charter school for technically underprivileged kids that live in the DC area. Believe it or not, there is poverty in DC. And it was a free school, and we had there's some pictures of those kids too on there that I'll be posting the link. And good stuff. We have fond memories. But again, kids that are not your own make it really hard to protect your family when you have limited scope of authority and ability to manage the circumstances. I don't know how to say that any other complicated kind of way. So I left DC to come to Florida without a job. Why would I do such a thing? Well, I felt by the dynamic of my family. My wife has a sister. Her sister's married, has children, lots of them, and they were on the verge of having another one. And I just thought to myself, in my entire extended family, I've got nobody my age. I've got nobody that I'm connected with. And I said, you know what? I really think it would be beneficial to try to proactively, somewhat sacrificially, I don't want to overstate the situation, but kind of just lay down priorities and take a leap of faith and go support family, see what we could do. And we did that over the summer of 2017. It feels like a long time ago and feels like not but a couple of days ago. It's really weird. It's almost 2 years now. It's amazing how time goes by. I wound up getting a job with a company that I referenced in the Betrayal 2018 video, MCUSA, and motivational coaches. It's basically, it was a company that allowed you to do counseling without a license and get paid significantly. Pretty good pay structure. Even though it was like a 70-30 cut or a 65-35 cut, they kept 65 or 70, but still it was good pay, so on and so on. That's kind of beside the point. We came to Florida to support my sister's family. It was my idea. And made some decisions in how to do that that might have not been wise. May or may not have been. The verdict's out, because it's impossible to know what the effect of your actions are in the short term, and even a couple of years in, you don't know. You really don't know. So what I'm referencing, that sounds really cryptic. I started a company with my brother-in-law, and it was a complete failure. Lasted about a year. And it was a fine idea. Not all good ideas are at the right time. And when you try to bootstrap an idea, that doesn't always work either, obviously. It just didn't have adequate resources, and it definitely didn't have adequate attention and energy put into it. So that really, you can't I'll just put it this way, you can't part-time a business. It doesn't work that way. And anyway, so that's part of the, like, a little bit of the sadness of the story. When you try and do something that's good or could be good, and it just falls on its face, it's just kind of rough. It was a dream and aspiration of his that I was trying to make come to life, because I'd heard other things, and I was just like, see what power I have to see if I can make some dreams come true. And I made the dream come true, so to speak, and it wound up to be a nightmare. It's kind of, I mean that to be funny and metaphorical or whatever. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into my thoughts around the whole situation, but sharing it because I want you to see where I'm coming from. So rewind again back several years, 14, 15, somewhere in the 14 or 15 range. My wife and I started, and you'll see on my YouTube if you scroll down to my oldest videos, Sanctorum Electus. We started a nonprofit, also fell flat on its face, got no support. We had plenty of people saying that they wanted to support us and that they were going to support us, that they just needed a little bit more time, or they wanted to learn more about it, but they were on board. They thought it was great. And it was before / during the Syrian refugee crisis. It was about that time that the thing was on our mind. But it's interesting because things come around full circle, so to speak. So I think back to Sanctorum Electus, and I think this is not done. People still care about this. So imagine a place where we live, and by we, I mean people with common goals. I mean people that, like the Bears, for instance, but primarily Christians, live together, work together, provide a sustainable community. They don't disconnect from society. They don't disconnect from the local community. They engage in local community, in commerce and trade and all that, but primarily provide for their own needs, just in case. And the whole idea of Sanctorum Electus was bringing mothers, like widows and children, and helping them build a house, helping, like, on the property, right? And by the property, I mean hundreds of acres, like a 1,500 acre property or something along those lines. They build a house. They do whatever they're physically capable of doing. They clean the food. They do whatever they can do to provide value, and they don't stay there. They move on. So they come, they learn, they do, they grow, they gain the strength, and they move on, and they go and do the same thing somewhere else. And that was the idea. And it's interesting because it's not a dead idea. It just has different different ways of looking at it. The Bears have talked about it several times, of having a place where we can be of a common goal. I don't know any other way to say it, but I do, but just for sake of time. So that was a rewind to back then, and it's still something that my wife and I are interested in, and we just have to find out when such a thing will become available. At this point in time, the lingo that we're looking into, my wife and I, is the concept of bed and breakfast as a micro idea. Yeah, man. At Central Iowa, I think about places like that. I think about Idaho, I think about these different places and go, there's opportunity. You want it to be arable land, you want it to be, you wanted to have the basics, you wanted to have the, well, it's not about utopia either. It's about having the basics, remembering what's most important. I mean, when I think about Amish, now I know that there's like bad/weird stuff associated with any group that does this sort of thing, and there's a lot of bad reputation around it. And I don't presuppose that that I could make it a perfect thing either, because people mess it up. Drama, what's temptation? Just there's sin. You can't remove sin, even in a ideal community. But there are ways to manage that. You have to kind of turn it into a business, so to speak, with bylaws and all that stuff. Kind of Puritan-esque and all that. Yeah, I agree. And there's it feels as though there's like massive legal hurdles to accomplish something like that. So you kind of have to do it without saying you're doing it. In a lot of ways, that's the way that I see it. You just kind of have to like get a bunch of people to pool in to buy land, and then you know, you just do it one step at a time. I'm at my hated intersection, so obviously I'm gonna be left, right, and left, right, left, right, left, right. It's not a good intersection, and if you could have guessed, there's no light here either, obviously. But anyway, came to Florida. I haven't accomplished what I had hoped to accomplish in building relationship with the other side of the family. My wife watches 2 of their children for 4 or so days a week, and that has been going on since we moved here. And we're doing the hard things because we care more about showing Christ's love than doing things that may benefit our bank account or whatever. Anyway, so it's not raining right now. Just have to play a game with the windshield wipers on, off, on, off. So the bed and breakfast idea is kind of a micro idea of the same thing. The interest there isn't about making money, obviously, and I've heard that it's terrible. You pretty much have to be self-funded. You're not going to make money as a bed and breakfast. I get it. I believe it. Makes sense. But that's not what it's about for us. It's about speaking truth in people's lives, being there. It's amazing how many bartender moments I've had in all these different jobs. If you don't get the metaphor I'm talking about, I've had a 45-year-old dude, not literally on my shoulder, but like in my passenger seat crying about his life. That might sound pathetic. It is and it isn't. It's not pathetic for a man to cry, but it's personal decisions he was making that he brought a lot of it on himself and all that. But bottom line is, I've had these beautiful opportunities to speak into people's lives, to be there for them, speak truth, to be a person that is though I have my own problems, obviously, and I come across like a jerk sometimes to people, I really have love. And because I have love, people get it. Like, people see it. People are like, yeah, this guy, I can talk to this guy. I'm the kind of guy that when somebody falls down, I don't run to their rescue. They couldn't have said what they said without godly wisdom. They're just quippy things that you're like, wow, there's so much to unpack there in that statement you just made. And part of it, we should recognize that no matter what our efforts are, God's the one that changes hearts. So no matter what kind of effort we put into a situation to try and speak truth to someone, ultimately God is going to be the one to change their heart. That needs to be remembered. It's very important. I'm hopping in here to see what the most, if God is behind him, he's going to make the way. Yeah, absolutely. Breath of Goldilocks. If you're pragmatist, people struggle to see your heart. Just because I'm logical doesn't mean I'm heartless. Yeah. So sometimes that logical nature can come across as cold. I have been accused of being Spock-like, but it's not for a lack of compassion. I have that, but pragmatist is a good way of putting it. I think that describes me. There's this personality type deal called, it's called your personality, not inclinations, styles, I think is personality styles. So technically, I think I recently retook the Myers-Briggs INTJ, whatever the same one as Elon Musk, and I believe it was INTJ, INTP, INTJ. It's one of the rarest. It's the one labeled the engineer. Man, I would have been a great software programmer. Anyway, but there's another one, and it's called expressive driver, amiable, and there's a fourth, and it's a combination. You have a primary and secondary. I can't remember the fourth. Look up those keywords and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I am an amiable driver, which are in conflict with each other, which is both a good and bad thing. It makes a person come across as a loving jerk, that also is a leader, but the elements that would make a person a good leader, I have a conflict with, because I I'm not money hungry and all these different, not that leaders are money hungry, but obviously good leaders aren't. Um, but I'm a problem solver. I try to think about the body of Christ metaphor and what part I would play. I'm a problem solution guy, um, through and through. And when there's a crisis, when there's a problem, I know that I am specially gifted to come up with solutions. And it has happened in supernatural ways, with discernment and words of wisdom, and it has happened in just practical ways with brute force and work. Um, I'm a problem solver. It's what drew my interest to counseling, and why I pursued that degree, was to help build a foundation for pursuing problem solving in life. Um, yeah, I think the artist or something along those lines was the fourth, but I just can't remember. Just look up the word driver, amiable, and expressive. That's the three, and there's a fourth, and I just can't remember the fourth. Analytic. That's what it was. Analytic. And I am analytic, but analytics have a special ability to concentrate and focus. And I'm more of a contingency guy, or what's another way of putting it? Yeah, contingency plan, backup plan. What's another way of looking at this? What's another solution? I'm an automator. Every job I've ever had, I've been like, if we do this way, this will save time and money. If we do this way, this will save time and money. If we do this way, this will save time and money. Hey, try this out. And that's been really a good thing, but I've never really profited from my skills in that area. Because I feel like the accumulation of my experience will ultimately someday have meaning and purpose and stuff. Yeah, as husbands, we have to be very careful with how we implement or provide our suggestions or ideas or solutions. I do try to be a good listener, but I'm a solver, and all problems cannot be solved necessarily, and sometimes because of that creative character and way that I've been designed, I sometimes will try to lean more on my belief that I could come up with a solution than with my eyes closed and praying to God, the one who has all power, which is just kind of how silly of us that we don't have way more faith and way more energy put into prayer because we want to see something right now, or because we think that we might be able to do something. So my wife was sharing, she did a Facebook stream the other day, and she said that she was talking all about the most important thing we can do for our children is to pray for them. I agree. And there's arguments that might come to mind right away to that sort of thing, but think about it. I had mentioned this in a stream not too long ago, and it's not related to the About Me, but I wrote this note down again with the conversation with my wife. Good sounding board. regarding children and salvation. So the way that she framed it, I wrote it down because I was like, no, that's right. It's good. Will my 4-year-old be saved? Will my 9-year-old be saved? Will my 15-year-old be saved? The question is not whether or not your child will be saved. The question is, do I believe God is just? All those questions that people come up with, hypotheticals. Do I believe God is just? There are questions that preface that, such as, do I believe His Word, the Bible? There's prerequisites to that question before you can even ask that question. But anyway, think about that. And if you're ever in a conversation with somebody that is asking you those hypothetical questions that are the tough questions, then that's what you need to respond is what you're really asking is whether or not God is just. And the Bible tells us the clear answer to that question is yes. God is just. And that is what matters. So about me, yes, I've got creds. Yes, I've got a college and grad school education. I have read through the Bible word for word, beginning to end, probably 3 or 4 times. 1, 2, 3. 3 for sure. I've read different chapters, different books of the Bible far more times, obviously. But an actual beginning to end dealio, I've actually only done, I believe, 3 times in 20 years. Doesn't sound very impressive, but that's not what it's about. I'm not here to impress anybody, but I am here to speak the truth, and that helps me to study more, to learn more, to take it seriously, and hopefully it helps others that are doing the same thing. I'm not here to spoon feed anybody. I'm here to encourage people to pick the Bible up for themselves, and give you a little bit. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to provide folks with the bumpers on the bowling alley. I just want to give you the bumpers, help you stay out of the gutter, and that's my purpose. But you need to roll the ball. It needs to go down the lane. You've got to do that. There's like popping or some minor explosions happening around me. Thanks for checking this out. I can't begin to describe my entire life in an hour or a little under an hour, but I will put the comment. Please check out the yes, and that's what I want to do, is help guide people away from heresy towards orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is the right thing. It's a good concept, and Jesus did it. He did the same thing, dispelling the lies and the man-created ideas. What did he point people back to? Scripture. look at the link. I'm going to post it right now. Giving myself a little time to post. Now, I can't do it right now. I can't chat. I can't do anything. I've got to wait until the video is finished doing its deal. So I'll do it in like 10 minutes.